All right, today we're going on an incredible trip high up into the Tibetan Plateau. We're going to follow a chapter from Nick Middleton's Silk Road. Now, this is a story about a modern-day pilgrimage, one that smacks right up against ancient traditions, the pure, raw power of nature, and, the very limits of what a person can endure. So, let's get right into it.
So, what's the whole point of this incredibly tough journey? Well, it all comes down to one thing: completing the Korah. For Tibetan Buddhists and Hindus, this is so much more than just a hike. It's this deeply sacred ritual, a walk all the way around the holy Mount Kailash that's said to wash away a lifetime of sins. And it's this one single, powerful goal that's going to push our author through every single challenge that's about to be thrown at him. The journey actually starts off just beautifully. They're leaving a place called Ravu. The sky is this perfect, brilliant blue, and the mountains have what he calls a rose-tinted blush. And as a goodbye present, a woman named Lamo gives the author this traditional, long-sleeve sheepskin coat. It's such a thoughtful and, let's be honest, super practical gift for the freezing journey ahead. And right here, this is where we get our first little hint of the uncertainty that's going to color this whole adventure. Their guide, Seton, he's pretty confident they can take a shortcut to Mount Kailash, but then he adds this little warning. It's such a simple phrase, right? If there is no snow. But it just kind of hangs there in the air, a perfect bit of foreshadowing for all the obstacles they're about to run into. So as they head out, the landscape is just huge. It's vast and empty and just seems to stretch on forever. I mean, it's a rocky wilderness, a place of what he calls splendid isolation. But that peaceful, empty feeling, yeah, it doesn't last very long, because pretty soon they meet the very serious guardians of this land. And here they are, the guardians of the plains. The author describes them so vividly. These aren't just dogs, they're shaggy monsters, blacker than the darkest night. These Tibetan Mastiffs, they guard the nomads' tents and just launch themselves at the car, totally fearless, chasing them like crazy. You can absolutely see why these ferocious protectors were such a big deal along the ancient Silk Road. The journey just keeps climbing higher and higher, and the pressure starts building in the author's ears. And then, bam, they hit their first major roadblock. I want you to just look at this number on the screen for a second. 5,210 meters. That is over 17,000 feet up. At an altitude like that, every single breath is hard work, and every challenge feels 10 times bigger. So here's the thing. It's not just the amount of snow that's the problem. The real danger, as his companion Daniel points out, is this slippery, icy layer on top of it. One wrong move, one little slip, and the whole car could just flip over. They are completely and totally stuck, with a steep drop on one side and this wall of ice right in front of them.
And this is where their guide just shows how brilliant he is. Thiessen doesn't panic at all. He just gets out, checks the ice, and then he comes up with this simple but totally ingenious solution. He starts throwing handfuls of dirt over the ice to create just enough grip, and then he expertly and slowly eases the car right across. Problem solved. He literally saved them from being stranded out there. So after all that drama, they finally make it to the top of the pass at a mind-boggling 5,515 meters. We're talking over 18,000 feet now. The summit is marked with this pile of rocks and colorful prayer flags. It's a sacred spot. But that feeling of victory, it doesn't last. A horrible headache kicks in, a really clear and painful sign of just how extreme the altitude is. Okay, so after getting down the pass and dealing with not one, but two flat tires, they finally pull into the little town of Hor. Now, this town is on the shore of Lake Manasarvar, which is one of the most sacred lakes in both Hindu and Buddhist traditions. You'd think it would be this place of amazing beauty and peace, right? Well, the reality is something else completely. This slide really says it all, doesn't it? It just captures the author's huge disappointment. He had read these old accounts from other travelers, like a Japanese monk who was so moved by the lake's beauty, he actually burst into tears. But what our author finds is this miserable town. Just dust, rocks, and garbage everywhere. It really highlights a theme of the whole journey, the clash between the sacred idea of a place and its modern, gritty, and kind of sad reality. So they leave the disappointment of Hor behind them and push on to Darchen, which is the starting point for the Korah. But now the author's health takes a really serious nosedive. That cold he's had for a while gets way, way worse. And at an altitude of 4,760 meters, it all leads to a truly terrifying night. Okay, So he tries to sleep, but something is very, very wrong. As soon as he lies down, his chest gets heavy and his sinuses just completely block up. But the moment he sits up, he can breathe again. So he lies back down, and the whole thing just happens all over again. It's like his body is physically stopping him from resting. Can you just imagine how scary that would be? Every single time he starts to drift off to sleep, something jolts him awake. It's like his body knows something that he doesn't, that at this altitude, with his lungs already struggling, lying down could actually be fatal. His own body is screaming out these emergency signals, and he has no idea why. And then, this horrifying thought starts to creep into his mind. He becomes totally convinced that if he lets himself fall asleep, he might actually die. So, completely terrified, he forces himself to stay awake for the entire night, just sitting upright in bed, waiting for the sun to come up. So the next morning, Sitan takes him to the local medical college. A Tibetan doctor, wearing a pullover and a woolly hat, just checks his pulse. And the diagnosis is simple. It's a cold, made really dangerous by the altitude. He prescribes a 5-day course of traditional Tibetan medicine, these little brown powders and pellets that the author says looked a lot like sheep dung. But hey, after the first day, he sleeps like a baby. So great, he's feeling better, but now a whole new problem pops up. Satan has left, and the town of Darchen is completely empty. It's too early in the pilgrimage season, so there are no other pilgrims around. And the author is now facing the idea of doing the Korah all by himself, a challenge he just doesn't feel ready for. I mean, think about it. After surviving the high altitude, the icy roads, and a near-death experience, he finds himself stuck. He's just sitting all alone in the only cafe in town, thinking that his big pilgrimage might end right there. What a letdown, right? Just loneliness and frustration. His whole positive thinking thing is definitely not working. And then, everything changes. A man named Norbu walks in. He's not a local, he's a Tibetan academic all the way from Beijing. They start talking, and the author finds out that Norbu has come to Darchen for the exact same reason, to finally complete the Korah, a pilgrimage he's only ever studied in books. Just when he was about to give up, hope literally walks through the door. Norbu's excitement is just infectious, and his proposal completely transforms the author's situation from this lonely struggle into a shared adventure. And that's where the story ends, not with a finished pilgrimage, but with a brand new beginning. It's a great reminder that sometimes the biggest challenges are the ones we overcome with a little help from a friend.